If you haven't played World of Warcraft retail in a while, I think you're gonna be surprised of how different the game is, even 2 expansions back. If you have, I think you are gonna really appreciate an honest, good faith outsider perspective on the game. The good things, the bad things, and the few changes that honestly would change my mind about retail entirely. Long story short, I am raid logging in Mist of Pandaria and I don't have much to do this month, so I made myself a challenge. What if I can hit Keystone Master using only the 1 button rotation? Spoiler alert, I did. Took me about, let's see, 2 days and 7 hours, more or less, of slash played. Why did I choose Keystone Master as a goal to test the game out? I figured it was a reasonable goal, even though it is not impressive or anything, obviously, because this is more or less where the majority of the population hover at. By the way, before I logged in, I made the mistake of buying the War Within and Midnight for the boost, because I do plan to play Midnight when it comes out, so I figured might as well skip a couple hours. Don't do that, buy Midnight only and you get the War Within for free. I didn't know that, so yeah, I wasted 30 bucks. I got ripped off by Blizzard. I'm a sucker. Within 5 minutes of logging into the game, I got a behavior warning, which I thought was really weird because all I did for 5 minutes was not type a single thing in chat and I was just AFK in the CD trying to fix my keybinds and whatnot. I haven't got banned yet, luckily, but that was interesting. By the way, you're gonna see me with a controller overlay. I did try to play with a controller for a while. It was surprisingly workable. They added a bunch of new controller support features. I gave up on it because I could not figure out how to do multi-button keybinds, but I think this proves once and for all that they are doing the 1 button rotation for console port at some point, because man, it is almost really good. I think it's gonna get really good eventually. They just need a couple more features on it and controller gamers are gonna love this game. I really believe it. For whatever reason, my character got bugged and I could not unlock flying, which is not a big deal as it is just a 10-minute quest, but it's kinda weird. It's kinda funny that the second I log in, there is already a bug in me. My homie Jerome, he also got boosted and his flying came in just fine, so I don't know what happened with that. Also, for some reason, all the NPCs in the city disappeared for like 20 minutes. It was some sort of like layering bug. That was very annoying, but after that, okay, we start the real game and we are in luck because a new major patch came out and everybody is more or less at the same level. This is one of the main differences actually between retail and classic WoW. Every time a new tier comes out, gear is essentially reset. Yes, in vanilla or TBC, when a new raid comes out, that raid's gear is gonna be better than everything before, but we are talking about like a 10 to 20% difference between tier and tier, so it is not like your previous tier was worthless. It is not like the gear from that place was now useless. It is still very important to have it, and it is a huge part of progression. Now, in retail, it doesn't work that way. Every major patch, you are given a bunch of free greens, and you are basically at the same place as everybody else again. Gear is essentially reset, and I can see why Blizzard went for this system, okay? I get it. It sucks to be behind, it feels like you can never catch up, it feels like it is pointless to get back into the game. I do understand that, but on the other hand, it makes gear progression feel pointless in my opinion. If I work really hard this tier to get best in slot, I did every raid, I got 720 or whatever, in 6 months it's gonna be all pointless because my gear is gonna be worse than greens. You could say that basically every major patch in retail is like a new expansion. That's the way you can look at it, and I could immediately tell that the attitude from retail players towards gear is a lot different than from classic, as in retail players for the most part do not seem to care much about your gear at all. For example, in Mythic Plus, by and large, the main decider on whether you get invited to a group or not, it is not your gear, but your rating. And I eventually understood the logic. It makes sense from their point of view because gear in retail is a lot easier to come around. You got LFR, you got normal raids. They are very easy, by the way, normal and LFR. You got a bunch of chances for tier pieces, and then you get a chest every week that has potentially the best gear in the game every week, so you can work out your pieces that way. You can even turn non-tier pieces into tier pieces every twice a week or so. I don't remember, there's like a currency thing going on. You can even upgrade that piece of gear and give it more item level with some sort of currency nonsense. I also am too lazy to figure out, but you can do it. It's very easy. You go to the city and you spend the coins. If you play the game long enough, you're gonna get best in slot or very close to best in slot relatively quickly. In my 2 days I got 694 item level, which I think is pretty mighty. Keep in mind my currency, I got all the upgrade, I don't know which one it is, Valor Stones. Yeah, I got upgrade cap actually, so I could go and upgrade all my pieces and get a bunch more item levels if I cared. I could definitely do that. By the way, look at all these currencies. This is why it is so overwhelming to me that I didn't even bother figuring out. I don't know what half of these things do. I know Valor Stones are for upgrades, and that's pretty much it. I got no idea what this does at all. And that is all to say that unlike every other version of the game, your gear is not really an indicator of your quality as a player or your chances of success. Yes, you're gonna do a little bit more damage, but usually before, right? If you had good gear, it meant that you at least were able to get in raid groups and clear, right? Not anymore. If I really wanted to, I could do delves and nothing else all day, and I would eventually get really good gear. Same with Mythic Plus, and that's actually something really funny, because I encountered several people with 700 item level that were absolutely terrible, that kept wiping the group, standing on fire, not interrupting spells, all that stuff. They were doing less damage than me on my one button rotation somehow, and once again, that's because if you are a bad player, you can still pretty much get gear in WoW. Gear is not important, and I get it. It is not supposed to be important anymore. As a matter of fact, when I started doing my groups, I learned that it is a red flag to have a lot of gear. For example, if you are a 710 player and you have 1500 rating, that can only mean that you are literally making every group fail, because it means you play the game for a while, but it also means that you could not push keys very high. That can only mean to me, as a group leader, that you are single-handedly tanking a group. Not to mention, by the way, that doing delves, a few delves, gives you the best in slot belt in the game, and a quest line at the start of the expansion is gonna give you the best in slot cloak in the game, so you get 2 items for free on top of that, which I guess is a great segue into my fresh character experience this patch. There is a new patch, there is a new quest line, there is, I believe, a new zone. I don't know if it was before, but it is now. Karesh, it is a mountain full of asbestos, you know, that rock dust that gives you cancer, that thing. It is considered a waste of your time to try to do anything before you get your cloak from that quest line, for the simple reason that you can literally not clear the raid. You need your cloak to do like a mechanic at the very first boss. It's like the Blackwing Lair Onyxia cloak, look at it that way. It is an attunement, okay? Retail does have a raid attunement, it is that quest. And that means that the first 3 to 4 hours in the expansion for a new player mean going through the most boring quest line a person could ever imagine. To be fair, I don't know what Blizzard could do to make me care about Xalatat. I really don't care. I played retail for exactly 2 days and 15 hours at this point, and the first 3 hours of the experience were by far the worst part of the entire thing. And I am not even exaggerating. Is it really the worst content I've ever seen? Yes, I would say so. Is it a huge deal at the grand scheme of things? Probably not, because you only have to do it once, but I think it kinda sucks that they put the most boring and awful content in the game at the start. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Imagine vanilla WoW leveling, but the mobs do not fight back, and every 2 minutes you get a cutscene with a really annoying voice actress. That's pretty much the entire quest line. It is hell. It is hardly a video game. Now, again, I don't really care at this point. I did it. I am over it. That's fine. It just sucks. I just wish I could skip this mandatory questline and do whatever I wanna do. If I wanna do Mythic Plus or PvP or whatever, why shouldn't I be allowed to do that? I don't know. And yes, you are gonna say, but Medina, if they do not put the best cloak in the game in that quest, nobody's going to do it. And to that I agree. I would not do it. Now here's my point though. I spent $80 on this. Do I feel I got more value for my money? Because I waste 3 hours at the start of the expansion. Do I feel somehow like I didn't get ripped off because there is 4 hours of quote-unquote content at the start? I don't think so. You know what's funny? If they put like a $40 skip to this questline, it would sell like pancakes. Please, Blizzard, do not take my idea. Please don't do it, but I bet you people would pay for that. Anyway, I did it. Boohoo, whatever, poor me. I got through the questline. And then you gotta do delves for 40 minutes. It is basically a dungeon, but the mobs do not fight back until level 7 or so, which is fine. Some people care for this. I really don't, but it's okay. I got my belt to like 700, and I thought, okay, I am good enough to do my actual Mythic Plus and my grind and my goal, so I did. Mythic Plus. For the classic players, Mythic Plus is basically a really hard version of the dungeon, and it's on a timer. You gotta clear it in 30 minutes, or if time runs out, you do not get your key. But if you clear it, you get to do an even harder dungeon, and it keeps scaling over time, getting harder and harder. You start in Mythic 0, you go to Mythic 2 and 3 and so on. If you did not get your key in time, you are gonna break your key, which is like a penalty on the score you get, which is a bit of a time waste. Aside from the loot, you still get the loot, but for the most part, the higher the key, the better the loot, and the higher the end-all be-all number for your character. That's gonna be your Mythic Plus rating. This little number is what people are gonna use to decide if you are good enough for their group or not. Every dungeon is a category, and your score is based on what's your best run for that dungeon, which is a combination of the level of the key and how fast you cleared it. For example, if you're 3k, you are really good. If you are 1k, you are a total noob. And the hardest content in the game, and I am not even kidding, I swear to God, it happens right away. Mythic 0, the very start. I am convinced Mythic 0 is harder than pretty much every key I did until level 9 or so, and my failure rate seems to follow that actually. I am in greens at this point in the career, right? I am Mythic 0, and I do no damage almost. I get one shot by almost every mechanic, because I am bodass naked. Everybody in my party is also bodass naked, and they also got no idea what they are doing. Neither do I. It is the first time I do this dungeon. And yes, I know, I understand, I am supposed to go to like Delves or Craft or something and get some epics and then go to Mythic 0, but nobody does. I am gonna throw something crazy out here, guys, and you let me know if I am crazy, okay? But would it be a problem if we put, say, 675 item level drops in Heroics? Currently, Heroic Dungeons give you 660 gear, which is basically greens. So doing Heroic Dungeons is a waste of your time, honestly. It would take an eternity to get a significant amount of upgrades. To the point I even wonder why they bothered putting it in the game, because, yeah, sure, normal dungeons are for leveling, I get that, but they are super easy, the bosses do not fight back, and the gear is useless, so what's the point of doing them at all? You let me know if buffing Heroic loot a little bit would be a problem. I really don't get it, but anyway, given the fact that Heroics suck, the most efficient way to get started in Mythic Plus is by trying to sneak into a group that is able to carry you. You sign up into unsuspecting groups until one of them, by the grace of God, takes you and is good enough to manage to clear, even if it takes an hour or two. And yes, you know full well that you're a liability to them, and there is a decent chance you will single-handedly kill the group, and it doesn't matter. Because even though you are dead half the dungeon, 1 or 2 tries later you are eventually in, and you get multiple upgrades, because in Mythic 0 you get a lot more gear. Even though it is not as good, you get a lot more drops than in Mythic Plus something. You get multiple chances for 681 items and a key and whatnot. If you wanna come here and call me a jerk, I understand, but from my perspective as a new player, I am very incentivized to ruin people's groups until I get my way once, and then I am in. That's why I said the Heroic Dungeon thing. I wish Heroic Dungeons were like a stepping stone into Mythic Plus. Right now they are not. So people are going blind into Mythic Plus without doing a single dungeon, so we don't know what the bosses do, we don't know what we gotta kick, what we gotta AoE, anything like that. We just go there blind, and that's a problem for everybody. I would go as far as to say that a lot of players see this, and especially people that aren't used to the MMO kind of gaslighting people into doing what you want aspect of it, they would look at Mythic 0, they would get in these kind of groups, right? And they would assume that Mythic Plus is either insanely hard content, almost impossible, or this super toxic place where the Brazilian healer is always ripping the N-word on chat. That happened, by the way, that happened once. To give you some numbers, because this surprised me a lot, my success rate on keys higher than 4 was about 77%, which is a little over 3 out of 4, pretty high, but my success rate on lower than 4 keys was 42%. Although, to be fair, No Hit Jerome was in a couple of those groups and he might have played a role in that. Can I get inside the circle or we die?
That was actually really unfair. I did everything right and it just got...
My chat warned me this was gonna be the case, so I powered through it basically, and honestly, when I got to Mythic 4, I was really having a good time. I am not even kidding. I believe Mythic Plus has a lot to offer. It gets harder and harder, you have to memorize the pools, the mechanics are very unforgiving, you have a very high incentive to make friends with people, because if you are friends with good players that you find, you have a good chance of getting a good group later, and that's great. Also, for the most part, I think the mechanic design and even the aesthetic design of something like Floodgate is really freaking cool. And eventually, if you are really motivated, you can master the game, master your class, become insanely good, and get something close, if not the best gear in the game from Mythic Plus, doing only dungeons. And that's pretty enticing to me. But before I go deeper into Mythic, I did try out raiding. First of all, raiding LFR and normal is by far the best way to gear up a character early on. So if you're a fresh character, the second you get the item level to go to LFR, just queue it and you're gonna get a ton of gear. LFR is a joke, it has always been. I even made a joke video trying to do LFR with 0 damage, just to prove a point. I never got kicked out, I got all the bosses, I even got a tier piece of that, so you can do LFR if you can queue it, pretty much. Now LFR drops 671 item pieces, which are terrible as I explained before, but they are tier pieces, and that's important because tier pieces have set bonuses, especially for the hunter. For example, my 4 piece is insane. As a Beast Mastery Hunter, you gain a bunch of AoE from your tier set and you get to throw gorillas at people, which is pretty funny. And in Mythic Plus in particular, AoE is the most important thing you can have because it is rare for you to wipe on a boss because of lack of damage. I mean, sure, it can happen, but usually it is a mechanic problem. For the most part, the difference between clearing a dungeon in time and not is how you handle the trash. So AoE is king for the most part. I thought the raids were fine, nothing to write home about, but once again, I did not do the real raids like Heroic or Mythic, the ones that are supposed to be real raids where the bosses do fight back. I haven't done them, so that's all I'm gonna talk about the raiding. It's really easy to do and it's a lot of gear for a new player, so do them. Essentially, the biggest difference between Classic WoW and Retail, in my opinion, is that Retail has all but eliminated the concept of gear. Gear is not a factor anymore. Sure, yeah, sure, a Mythic Raider is gonna have like 710, 720 gear compared to my 700 in 2 days, but I am also sure that if I bothered upgrading my stuff and getting all my enchants and whatnot, I could probably push a little beyond that. But it hardly matters. I do not think my damage would significantly increase if I got a bunch more gear. And I am pretty sure, almost certain, that if I were to run into 720 gear tomorrow, that would not make me any more likely to get in a Mythic Plus group. And this is and has always been, honestly, my main gripe with Retail, that from my point of view there is nothing to strive for, because yeah, sure, Keystone Legends, I could get a really high rating on Mythic Plus and that would be pretty cool. I get it, but that's not an MMO to me. I am not a person driven by excellence. I am a bum. What I like about MMOs is that I can farm a sword and I will kill you because I play the game more than you. That's the entire point of an MMO, in my view. I don't know if you agree with it, that's the way I see it. In Retail, all that matters, for the most part, is your skill. which once again, I totally understand why people like that. That is a valid thing to say, but if you like it this way, and there is nothing wrong with that, you also have to at least concede to me that calling this an MMO is a bit of a stretch at this point. The modern WoW gameplay is more in line with like a co-op looter shooter or something like that, which is fine. I love Dark and Darker, for example. That's a very good game, but I am trying to say that the overall feel of the game is very different from classic WoW. Very, very different. And while I think that Mythic Plus in particular is a very compelling system, it will never scratch the same itch as proper World of Warcraft to me. There are some positives though. For example, the social aspect of the game is a little better now than it used to be in previous expansions. Even I dare say in Mist of Pandaria, I would say retail, believe it or not, is more social as an experience than Mist of Pandaria. Shocker! You are heavily incentivized to join a guild and make friends, especially the higher key you go. Having access to good players is gonna determine your success more than anything else. I kinda hate that you cannot whisper people from the group finder. At least it didn't let me. I don't know if it's a feature that people turn off by default or whatever. It doesn't let me whisper anybody there, and that sucks because most of your time in this game is spent in the pre-made dungeon finder looking for a person to do a group with. That is where most of your time is gonna go to. I feel this would be a lot more bearable and hell, even more meaningful if you were able to whisper those people. At least that would make it so you're waiting, yes, but you are talking to somebody. You know, I feel that would make it a lot more satisfying. I would say at least half my time in these 2 days and 15 hours were spent waiting for a group. So yeah, you gotta consider that. Which makes it suck that much more when you fail a key because you spent 40 minutes looking for one group and then it fails. And I am not saying this to diss the game, because for the sake of this video I did not join a guild or look for friends or whatever, but if you have any intention of pushing keys at all, I heavily recommend, I cannot stress this enough, find a guild. You are doing yourself a very big disservice not having a guild in this game. Look up for a Mythic Plus guild or something. I wish I could tell you how, maybe WoW Progress, Warcraft Logs, one of those websites. There's gotta be a guild in your server that you can join, maybe Discords, something like that. There is this thing in WoW, I get it all the time, that people say that running a guild takes more time than pogging, or that the people that are in serious guilds play the game a lot. Yeah, sure, a lot of people do, a lot of those people do, but some of these people that pog, they play the game so much you would not believe it. This is so inefficient to do that it is crazy. And somehow it would seem that most people out there are pogging, which is wild. And in retail it is 20 times more this way than classic. And it also kind of shows in the type of person that you meet along the keys, right? Like, yeah, sure, early on it is like a fiesta, it is a chaos, it's always like a failed group or like people that got no idea what they're doing, new players, whatever. Mythic Zero is hell. I will keep sustaining this, that Mythic Zero is the hardest key, believe it or not. But even though it was pretty easy and safe to do 6, 7s, by the time we get to 8, the vibes were very different. Some examples. We died in the last boss of Arakarat. We missed the time limit, which is a bummer, but it was barely like 20 seconds. It was still very much doable. We could get some loot, maybe a little rating. It was fine. Our tank warrior decided to single-handedly solo the boss, not letting us rest, not letting us release, and not letting us leave, because if you leave the group, you get a penalty, right? He held us hostage for effectively 23 minutes. I counted. He sat on top of the boss, not dying and doing as little damage as possible until the boss died eventually. That was pretty crazy. I was surprised you could even do that, but yes. I also had several instances when one person doesn't want to do the key for whatever reason, and they know that they will get deserted if they leave, so they just AFK, and they know you're gonna have to abandon the key, because if you got one less person you cannot clear. A lot of healers do this. A lot of healers literally just go AFK in the entrance until you leave. That's something they do. And as far as I know, there is no recourse for that. There is no way to report them or anything, so that sucks. One key I almost did get carried because Jerome introduced me to this Mythic Raider guy called Mechanized. He makes a bunch of Wikoras and stuff. You might have heard of him. Like a literal Mythic Raider guy with best in slot gear. We were gonna do a +5 floodgate with that guy one night, and we go do like the second trash pool and one person dies or two people die, something like that. It was not a big deal, really. You lose 10 seconds, 2 deaths. We are still plenty of time left. We got an amazing tank. We got plenty of damage. We can do this. The healer calls mechanized. The literal Mythic Raider investing slot. Down syndrome and leaves. Breaking my key. And that was the last time I ever used my key for the group. That's the other thing about Mythic Plus. You got an item in your bag, that's the key that lets you do a particular dungeon. It's random every time. And if you fail, the key goes down by 1 level. So there is a disproportionate distribution of consequences when something goes wrong. If you are the person that puts the key in the dungeon and the group falls apart, you are the one that gets most of the consequences. Your key is broken now. That sucks. And it is a little infuriating because the kind of pog that you get after 5 or 6 are not bad players. The obvious mistakes I see before, at least the ones I can understand, they do not happen anymore. People kick the bosses, people do not stand on stuff, all that stuff is more or less nailed down at this point. But the toxic behavior gets more and more common, and it kind of makes sense. Like I said, you are very incentivized to make friends and make a group. If you play this game for a while and you are a decent player and you get the thing figured out, there is probably only one reason why you are pogging all your keys at plus 10, plus 15, whatever. And that reason is that you are probably not a person that's pleasant to be around. Your attitude is usually poison. You see, a lot of these abandons, a lot of these brick keys are not because one person leaves because they feel we cannot clear. A lot of the time, it is one person that decides the group, even though it is perfectly capable of clearing, it is not good enough for them. I had another Brazilian healer, I don't know, they put BR in the name. If you don't want me to make fun of Brazilians, why do you put BR on your name? If you're gonna be toxic, do not put BR on your name. You're gonna give Brazilians a bad name. You know what I mean? But I had another Brazilian healer leave on one group because the tank pulled one extra pack of trash he was supposed to skip. We didn't wipe, we didn't lose a lot of time, but the thought of the tank not knowing every single trash skip on a Mythic Plus was enough for that healer to leave and break my key. Actually, no, it was the tank's key. That kind of sucked. And I felt really like I was walking on eggshells. I felt like I was one little thing away from breaking my group apart. More often than not, I wanted to ask a question like, oh, hey, how do I do this mechanic? Or what do I prioritize kicking? Or when do I pop lost? But I felt that if I were to ask that question, some person would flip at me for being a noob and would break the key. I just wanted to share my experience because, once again, I do not think this is a deal breaker for me. If I was really motivated to keep playing the game, I would find a guild and do it that way. I absolutely would not pog my keys, let me tell you that much. Any sort of social network would isolate you from this toxicity for the most part. And hell, if anything, I think that's a good thing for the game. I like a game that incentivizes you to make friends. I like that, I mean it. But overall, I want your ability to be in a group and to be sociable and pleasant to be around to be a key part of your success. This is supposed to be an MMO, and that's supposed to be like the key core factor of what makes an MMO. But overall, I think my retail journey is over for now. I got to the point where my damage is a liability and it makes clearing keys higher than like a 9 almost impossible unless I am getting turbo carried, and I guess this is why most people either quit or get stuck at Keystone Master, because it all goes back to the one button rotation. As you guys know, I have been very outspoken about it, and I will admit, if it wasn't for the one button rotation, I wouldn't have even bothered doing retail at all. But all my criticisms are still here. I have no way to naturally transition from one button to my full rotation. I am either pressing one button, actually I just got a macro in this button, I just hold it and it does everything, or I am pressing a lot of buttons. I had no reason to learn what my spells do, and I do not even know the name of my spells. All I know is that there's a gorilla flying every so often, and yes, I play what's broadly recognized to be the easiest spec in the game, that's Beast Mastery Hunter, and even that, let's go to the guide in Wowhead. This is still a 13 button rotation, maybe 8, there is a lot of conditionals here, and there is also a different rotation for AoE, don't forget about that. And yeah, sure, it is not that bad. I could learn to do the rotation. I have no interest in it. I have no interest of playing piano for my video game. I do not find this gameplay enjoyable at all. I never opposed the one button rotation because I thought the game was too easy with it. I opposed the one button rotation because I thought it was a cheap and stupid way of fixing a problem that has a very obvious solution. If normal people cannot play your game anymore because the classes are too complex, simplify the damn classes. That's it. That was my entire point. I don't understand why they decided that you need 20 buttons to have a fun time in World of Warcraft. Are people seriously gonna stop caring about Race to World First or MDI if the classes are suddenly 5 buttons? League of Legends has 4 buttons, Albion Online has 6 buttons, Counter-Strike has 2 buttons. Are people gonna say that those games do not have a competitive scene at all because of that, or that they are too simple? There is a lot more that goes into a game than the amount of buttons in your rotation, man. And honestly, if they simplify the classes, which they might in the next expansion, they promise to get rid of a bunch of stuff, this game might actually be playable and good to me again. And I would love that. I would love to look at Midnight and see that it's a great expansion with actual fun gameplay and things I can understand and enjoy. I would love that. The rotations are the deal breaker for me in retail, and that's the only reason I will never, as long as this is the case, I will never treat retail as my main game or anything like that. I don't want to take piano classes to play this game. If I really wanted to try hard and spend a stupid amount of time mastering a game, it is not gonna be World of freaking Warcraft. I'm sorry, man. Nobody cares about what you do in this game. Go to like League of Legends or Street Fighter. Get good at a game where people care about it. But to end this on a positive note, there is a lot of positives now, and I have to admit it. I will agree to the people that said that retail is in the best state it has been in a very long time. There is no arbitrary grind anymore, like that stupid necklace or whatever, or the artifact power is gone. There is no Titan forging anymore. Thank God it took them like 3 expansions, but they finally gave up on it. All you gotta do is that stupid cloak, and after that you are pretty much free to do whatever you want. And that is just awesome. You can PvP or even raid with very little commitment now, which is great, and the dungeons are really fun and clever. I actually really like the new design of the mechanics in the dungeons. What this isn't is an MMORPG, and this isn't also a game where I feel I could throw my life away at, like Teenage Me did with the original WoW, and that's fine. Not every game has to be an MMORPG, and not every game has to take my life away to be good. Midnight is gonna take away a lot of stuff, and that might make it even better, and that might even get me to long-term play the game, even though I don't think I would ever play Retail over Classic. Classic WoW and Retail are very different games, and while the World Within is a very healthy expansion, in my opinion one of the best we had in a long time, it is still not the game for me. But what do you think? Did you give Retail WoW a chance this expansion? And how long did it last? Are you still playing it? Did you give up? Did you hit any of the roadblocks I hit and give up on that point? Like, what made you quit? I would like to hear that too. We are live on Twitch every single day. Subscribe, join the Discord, and thank you for watching.